Hi, welcome to I Love the Church Part 2. If you saw our last video, you saw me ask a young man a very important question. When I say the word church, what comes to mind?
Corruption.
Now we're going to look at a couple other people that we asked the same question. What comes to mind when you hear the word church? And I think we're going to have some interesting responses there too. What comes to mind when I say the word church?
People who will judge me.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, who ever heard of anyone being judged at church before?
When you need somebody that don't need you, well, it's a hard river to row. Drown in your sorrow, they don't care if you do, well, it's a hard river to row. You thought they were heading down the same old way until you find you've been drifting on your own one day. A hard river to row.
Very funny. Now, I'm not sure that people judge each other quite as harshly as they used to. I think today we kind of tolerate almost anything. I will say this, I think today we've become much more selective of the sins that we'll condemn. We condemn some sins more than we do others. I think one of the biggest problems is when people come into the church, they don't necessarily feel real welcomed in many churches. We tend to cling to our own little groups, don't we? I don't know, maybe it sounds rather cliche, but maybe we ought to ask, what would Jesus do when outsiders come into the church? While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and with his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Now, when the Pharisees saw what Jesus was doing, they began to judge them according to their moral standard. They were doing this as moralists. In other words, their goal was to change people's behavior. Jesus came to show us how to relate to God and to each other in true holiness. Now, the biggest difference between the Pharisees and Jesus is how he dealt with people. He dealt with them in a holy way. He dealt with them in holiness. He wasn't looking at the behavior that people were exhibiting. He was looking at how that they could live a different way. Now, on another occasion, another Pharisee came to Jesus asking him about the law, about obeying the law, and asked him which of the law is the greatest law. And Jesus gave a unique answer to him in dealing with God and with others as well. And Jesus replied, "The most important commandment is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. You must love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might, and with all of your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these." You know, when you love God with all of your heart, with all of your strength, with all of your might, you don't do things to hurt him.
Show me the money!
And when you love others as you love yourself, you put their needs above your own. You love them as much as Jesus loved you. And how much does Jesus love you?
Jesus loves me, this I know.
Just like an open community, someone who's always there to support you. Like, I personally don't go to church, but I know if it's there if I need it, essentially.
What would I do if I didn't go to church on Sunday morning? Now, I have to tell you, the answer that this young woman gave me is very disturbing, even more disturbing than the answer I got from a young atheist gentleman.
Honestly, kind of silly, in my opinion.
Church itself is silly?
I think so.
Now, I know many of you who go to church will probably say, Greg, you're out of your mind. What this young woman said was far better than what the atheist said. Let's take a moment and listen to what she said again, because there are two parts to her answer.
Just like an open community, someone who's always there to like support you.
Now, the first part of her answer that she gave sounds about right, doesn't it? But let's listen to the rest of her answer.
Like, I personally don't go to church, but I know if it's there if I need it, essentially.
Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time evaluating what she said to us today. I think that it's pretty symptomatic, though, of a lot of people who don't go to church. It's not that they necessarily hate church. It's not necessarily that they feel they're going to be judged in church, or that it's corrupt, or any other answer that we may get. I think many times people just don't see any reason to go.
I know if it's there if I need it, essentially.
Now, in my next video that's entitled, What Jesus Are You Talking About?, I will be interviewing a young man who's a born-again Christian. He attends church regularly, but he puts his finger right on the problem as to why a lot of people aren't going to church. Join us next time when we present, What Jesus Are You Talking About?